Lu Xing plundered the subsequent crystals from the deep sea, fully aware that his industrial-scale extraction would create an enormous disturbance above, yet he couldn't care less. The seawater gushed in violently like two massive waterfalls merging into one, but he didn't pause for even a moment. His polished leather shoes lightly tapped the water's surface, making a squelching sound that hardly resembled someone carrying a heavy load. Even in the depths of the ocean, Lu Xing's hair remained impeccably styled as he strode forward, carrying a massive bag of subsequent crystals with ease. With just a casual harvest, he had already collected over 100 kilograms. It was unimaginable how much miraculous material this planet contained. Time was running out. It was time for the second phase. He smiled and extended his hand, instantly releasing his vast spiritual force. Before him, a massive net woven from spiritual energy unfolded, covering the entire ocean's surface and the surrounding islands, allowing him to freely explore alone. After utilizing the subsequent crystals, his glass-based mental cultivation technique had significantly evolved, transforming into a crystalline humanoid form, and his spiritual power had become immensely stronger. He wasn't sure if his spiritual strength had reached level 9, but it was certainly far beyond level 8, both in quantity and quality. With his spiritual force spread out, Lu Xing detected a group of people carrying large and small sacks across a vast grassy plain. Seeing their substantial numbers, they naturally caught his attention. How could he let this opportunity pass? Very well, they would be his first targets. Declaring this to himself, his figure blurred in an instant. The ocean's surface quickly returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened. While he had already dashed toward the island, the group, unaware they had become prime prey for Lu Xing, was busy opening their sacks to show each other their harvest for the day. While he had gathered several kilograms of subsequent crystals from the ocean depths, these people had only managed to scavenge fragments, with the most successful among them collecting barely a few hundred grams. Those with decent strength had gathered about that much, while the weaker members of their organization had only managed to scavenge half as much. One particularly lucky individual had gathered a maximum of 300 grams. The leader of the group, after listening to all the reports, took a deep drag of his cigarette before smugly boasting, "Not bad, I've got over 300 grams myself. If we pull everything together, we should have around 3 to 4 kilograms. Last time, we struggled just to gather 2 to 3 kilograms of subsequent crystals, but this time, we've already surpassed that." The mid-tier members eagerly agreed. "We still have plenty of time. If we manage to snatch a few more batches from others, breaking past 5 kilograms isn't out of the question." Suddenly, a voice from behind asked, "But what if someone else takes them from us instead?" Caught up in their excitement, they didn't pay much attention and laughed. How could that happen? We of the Mingu Hall stand united, and with Senior Xing Yuzong leading us, who would dare steal from us? It was a male voice, but why did it sound unfamiliar? The only woman in the group glanced around. Something wasn't right. Wait a minute. Who just said that? At that moment, the group froze and simultaneously turned to look behind them. They were shocked to see a young man with a ring seal on his shoulder, carrying a massive sack. Gazing at them with a half-smile, when had he appeared? No one had noticed his approach, nor even when he spoke. More importantly, how powerful was this guy, and why did he dare face an entire group from Mingu Hall alone? Did he not know fear? The group immediately huddled together, eyeing Lu Xing with heightened caution. Only their leader remained calm, casually extinguishing his cigarette before scoffing. "Ho ho, you seem quite confident in your own strength." As he spoke, he clasped his hands together, cracking his knuckles with a loud crack-crack, a signature move of high-level martial artists. As soon as he finished, his internal energy surged like an untamed wild horse, clashing violently against the aura radiating from Lu Xing. The two locked gazes, neither backing down. One was a proud black dragon, the other a mighty king of the jungle, never having tasted defeat. After a long stare down, Lu Xing finally smiled. "Am I confident? Well, maybe just a little." Before his words even fully left his lips, his body flickered. The fresh scent of the grassy plain was carried by the wind, as if today was a beautiful day for an encounter. The leader's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't even realized when Lu Xing had passed him. What? He looked down, only to see that his clothes had been torn into shreds, desperately clinging together yet failing to stay intact. Rip. His entire outfit simultaneously disintegrated, scattering into the air as if yanked apart by an unseen force. A shrill, almost feminine scream echoed as if someone had been tickled in the ribs. The only things left on his body were the white collar of his shirt and a pair of underwear that, thankfully, wasn't decorated with cartoon dinosaurs or Hello Kitty. Otherwise, this would have been even more embarrassing, despite his clothes being shredded. Lu Xing hadn't even taken his hands out of his pockets yet. The leader had collapsed onto the ground, face first. The entire Mingu Hall group gawked, their minds filled with the same question. What just happened? Senior. What? Did that ring seal kid even make a move? How did Senior fall? We couldn't even see what happened. They rushed forward to help. But the lone woman among them suddenly halted, staring at Lu Xing with sheer horror. His appearance had been altered with extreme precision, yet those cold, emerald green eyes, that fearless expression, how could she forget them? A certain figure with identical eyes surfaced in her mind, sending a shiver down her spine. It's him. No, it can't be. It's impossible. But that was the temporary end for Mingu Hall, because the person she thought couldn't possibly be here was indeed standing right before her. 10 minutes later, a deafening explosion erupted from the ocean, sending waves surging tens of meters high before crashing down like heavy rain. On a nearby island, another group was searching for subsequent crystals when they suddenly found themselves facing impending disaster. They looked ahead and saw, was that a young man carrying a sack larger than Santa Claus's on Christmas Eve. Lu Xing had already tired of talking with Mingu Hall. He was here to plunder, and he wasn't going to waste words. Hand over your subsequent crystals. Just one sentence, laced with overwhelming killing intent, left them completely unprepared. Panic-stricken, they stared at Lu Xing as if they had seen a ghost. The biliest man among them, despite his muscular build, was the quickest to surrender. He dropped to one knee, raising a large sack above his head. I surrender! Here, take it! From above, one could see that this man's subsequent crystal collection was top-tier. Each piece was large and shone brilliantly under the sunlight. Lu Xing took the sack, his smile turning amused yet no less intimidating. Not bad, 1 kilogram, you may leave. As soon as Lu Xing gave his approval, the man bolted away, mumbling in fear. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And that island? That island where Mingu Hall had just been. Lu Xing had reduced it to nothing but ruins. Now there's only a huge pit left in that place. Everything has evaporated. Let's run. We can't stay in this competition anymore. Everywhere Lu Xing passed through was incredibly smooth, yet he still felt it wasn't enough. Clicking his tongue, he muttered that this collection method was still too slow. Finding each person one by one was too much effort. As he looked at the scorching hot subsequent crystal bag in his hand, an idea suddenly struck Lu Xing, one that would speed this process up. Sacrificing the rook to capture the queen was the strategy. With a flick of his mental power, he lifted all the subsequent crystals, regardless of size, into the air. They simultaneously soared about 10 meters above his head and gathered there. The idea was reminiscent of a drone light show he had once seen. It probably looked quite similar to this. After assembling a massive cluster of large and small subsequent crystals, a colossal formation hovered over his head, making it extremely eye-catching. But in case some nearsighted folks still couldn't see it, Lu Xing snapped his fingers, adding a bit of a special effect, crackle. His mental power spread from the top of the subsequent crystal cluster downward, gradually turning it purple. It now stood out starkly against the blue sky and the deep blue ocean. When his mental power touched the surface of the subsequent crystals, tiny purple lightning bolts crackled across them. As for Lu Xing, he simply whistled leisurely, waiting for the big fish to come take the bait. Come on now, I can't wait any longer. A few minutes earlier, before Lu Xing stirred things up, inside the Holy Heaven Island, Cumberland was gazing at a massive screen displaying scenes of people diligently collecting items and others fiercely fighting to plunder them. Everything was proceeding just as it had in past tournaments. Suddenly, a sharp female voice called from behind. Huh! Why isn't that person showing up? Change it! Hurry and switch the feed! Despite Fiona's extraordinary aura and background, she was still crazy about handsome men. No one knew how Lu Xing had bewitched her that day. But now she was like a girl eagerly awaiting news of her crush. Many camera feeds flickered past as they searched for him. But he was no longer in the sea, that tall, lean figure. Fiona could recognize him in an instant. There! Alright, stop, show this scene. It seemed the pearl of the world truly had her eyes on this charming boy from Ring Seal. The subordinates snickered, whispering behind Fiona's back as if they had stumbled upon some juicy gossip. She was openly showing her affection for a lowly member of Ring Seal. Of course, people would laugh. But they weren't just laughing at Fiona. They were also laughing at Cumberland. So what if she liked him? Did she think it was that easy to get past Lord Cumberland? Cumberland heard his subordinates murmuring but didn't turn around. He was also curious to see what that boy was capable of and whether Fiona's taste was any good. Wait. Why were all the contestants suddenly gathering in one spot on the map? On the radar. Besides a single red dot at the center, the surrounding yellow dots were rapidly converging towards it. The distance between them was shrinking fast. The yellow dots were all rushing toward that red dot. Something was definitely happening. And what exactly was that red dot? Narrowing his eyes at the screen, Cumberland leaned in to find out.